episode of the Seminary Up Close. I'm Stephen Heiner, and with us, as always, is the rector of the seminary, His Excellency Bishop Donald Sanborn. Hello, Your Excellency.
Hello.
I've always heard you say over the years, I don't count them till Christmas. And spending 6 months at the seminary, I found out that people do leave before Christmas.
That's correct.
And one of the questions I'd ask...
I'll be home for Christmas. I think it's a song.
It's a song, right? And sometimes the aspiration of a former seminarian. So we had a subdiaconal ordination recently, and we were talking at table, and I was very surprised to hear you say sometimes people leave right before the subdiaconate. And my surprise was, you've been in the seminary probably 4 or 5 years at that point. Didn't you figure out that you didn't want to be a priest? And your response was?
That it's the bridge of no return. In other words, you cross that bridge and then it blows up behind you.
Maybe not the most felicitous.
Yes, that's maybe not the best image, but you give up your right to marry, and you're really taking the big step. In that sense, it's like your wedding day. In that sense, you're marrying the church that day. You cannot go back on becoming a priest. You could say, I want to remain a subdeacon forever. You could say that. We will let you be a subdeacon forever if you are useful to us. But the St. Francis, for example, was a deacon forever. He didn't feel he was qualified. He was so humble. Would that he became a priest. But there were deacons in the past, but the big thing is that you are taking the definitive step. In the past, if a subdeacon wanted to get out of his obligations, he would have to apply to Rome.
Which, as we know, the offices are closed at the moment.
Yes, so there's really no possibility of dispensation.
So with that coming up, you say people are pushed to confront their motivations in a way that they were not when they were in minor orders or year 3 of the seminary. It's just another year, and
you could receive minor orders and walk out the very after the ceremony and say, I'm sorry, I'm leaving. And nobody could say boo to you. In other sense, it is completely legitimate to do that.
So over your many years of forming clergy, you've seen people have the subdiaconate looming and exit stage left.
Yes, I would say it's rare, but it happens. It does happen. It's the next stop. After they get through the first year where they decide, okay, I'm going to be a priest. I'm going to make this commitment to the seminary training. That's the first stop on the train, you might say. The next stop is subdiaconate. That's where they really have to make the big decision. And no traditional priest will ever marry you. In other words, do the marriage. In other words, you're cooked. I know somebody that actually became a novus ordo in order to get married. Yes.
Well,
yes. So, you're stuck, so you have to make a very, very big decision, and we require them to write a letter in their own hand saying, I understand all of the obligations of the subdiaconate. They also are bound to the divine office under pain of mortal sin for the rest of their lives.
Which is no light office.
No, it takes approximately 90 minutes every day.
I was going to say it might take 90 minutes to read what you need to do. Sometimes there's so many different instructions given different times of the year.
You get used to all that. That comes quickly. That's not too bad, especially with Father Patrizzi's ordo. Yeah.
Very happy to have it.
Yeah.
Sometimes someone will leave either in the middle of exams or right before exams, and I suppose that's the academic objection.
Yeah, they're up against a wall as they see that they are never going to get through this, and they don't have the energy and stamina to try. They get discouraged. They see that it's so hard. How can I do this? I don't really understand it. I don't have the study habits to absorb it, even to reproduce it. In other words, just to memorize the answers and put them down. They just don't have it in them. And they leave. No hard feelings. That's it.
Sometimes there's a romantic interest. I think people will be confused to think, well, Your Excellency, they all live at a seminary. There's no there's no women here at the seminary. They
Except the cook,
Except
but she's 65. So
she's not looking at the moment.
Right.
And so they're studying all the time. They're busy with liturgy and practice, and they have many other things. Even if someone were living here, it wouldn't be an opportunity. So how does that happen where a romantic interest can insert itself?
well, they long to be married. You know, they've seen religious life and the life of the priesthood, and they just decide, I think I'd rather be married and have children, which is perfectly legitimate. You know, and so
Do you think do you think that they think it might be easier, or just not for them? That the priesthood is not for them.
the priesthood is not for them. I think they feel that they would be happier in married life. That's completely their decision, and that happens quite often.
And better for it to happen now.
Yes, that's the whole purpose of the seminary. I always say the seminary is doing its job as much when it shows someone he should leave as when it promotes someone to the priesthood. So it's doing its job both ways. You see, it wants to present the life of the priesthood to the young man, and if he decides it's not for him, he should go.
A phrase that you often use, which is a standard for me when I think about vocations now, is this idea of a fire in the belly. That to make it through all these years of studies and corrections and waking up early and having to do things, you need to have a fire in your belly. Can you elaborate that a bit more?
You have to have a deep, deep determination to go through with this thing. That's what I mean by that. That you have to.
Because married people don't face any equivalent. There's no 7-year trial of, are you sure you want to be married? And you said, is it maybe that should be introduced? Right. We would see how many people would opt for that.
You never know. We might have no babies in the world, but don't forget, marriage is a contract, an indissoluble contract, and I think there's a reason for that. No door is open after you know. Right. There's no place.
Or someone might say it's a bridge that blows up after.
Yeah, that's a bridge that blows up behind you too. You have to, have a very strong determination to get through. This is what I want to do. And those are the ones that go through. You ask them, oh, absolutely, I want to be a priest, and no matter what it takes, I want to be a priest. Another transportation analogy, I often have flown around the world, and you see those tremendous jets take off for Europe or the Australia or something. They are loaded with fuel, and I think, how are they going to get off the ground? Even all the times that I've seen them, all these years, I think that will never get off the ground. Those tremendous A380s,
which you haven't been on before.
No, I've never been on one of those. But of all of them, I think that will never take off at the end of the runway, and they take off. And so it's the same thing. Is that your wings have to be loaded with fuel to get to the destination over the ocean. And they have to be all loaded and ready to go.
And I don't really feel that there's an analogy in lay life insofar as people could say that about being a doctor, a lawyer, a Navy SEAL, a neurologist. But the problem is you can always quit that later. If you decide, I don't want to be an astronaut anymore, I don't want to be a fireman, whatever it is, you can't quit the priesthood in that way.
No, you can't. And also, as a doctor, lawyer, etc., you can get married and have children. You see, that's a whole other aspect. In other words, you're giving that up as a sacrifice. Pius XII said that the perfect chastity is the daily holocaust upon the altar. And the authors say that it is the greatest of all of the penances of the priesthood. Those all the sacrifices of the priesthood is the fact that you give up your family life. You see, so they have that's a big difference. They have to, and the priesthood, especially today, in my diocese when I was growing up, the priests had 3 days off a week. There were so many priests in the Brooklyn diocese. There was something like 700 priests in that diocese.
Well, you could get good at golf or something.
Well, they did. They did. They
be a pretty good gig, 3 days off a week.
Yes, we really get no days off.
I found that out recently.
It's work, and I think the seminarians see that this is a whole different world of priesthood. that this is not.
It's not the 1950s anymore.
No, it's not the 1950s, and it's a great deal of sacrifice.
I was talking to Father Patrizzi about attrition numbers in recent years, because obviously you've had different, when you were in Ridgefield or in Michigan, you've had different numbers. But he said 33% attrition, which I find interesting because it's somewhere between, I've told you before that Marine Corps boot camp, the idea is to get everybody across the line, so that doesn't have as bad of an attrition rate. But let's say Marine Corps officer candidate school, 75%. They want you to quit. They only want a third to graduate. So 33% strikes me as something that is, it's certainly more than we accept everybody and we get everybody across the line. But it's also significant enough. 1 in every 3 potentially don't get to the finish line. Just shows you, as you say, the seminary is doing its job if it helps facilitate that exit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it could be for any of those motives, either wanting to get married or academics or health, for example, mental health. We might discover things about them as we live with them, and they talk to their spiritual directors, etc. Moral health, in other words, they cannot live up to the moral standards that are required of them. All sorts of things, so they may be asked to leave. In other words, that we really don't think you have a vocation and you should leave. You see, we can't promote you to orders.
Well, I think one particular candidate had told me before he was told that he had too much independence of spirit. Mm-hmm. And that is an important thing as well, because you're going to have superiors and you need to report to them.
Yes. It's obedience and there's discipline. It has to function as a society and more even than a business. I mean, your whole life. There's no going home at 5 o'clock or whenever they go home now, but you're always in it. You see,
always on duty, I suppose.
Yes, I mean it used to be in the diocese if the curates would have to ask the pastor if they could go out and where they were going. That's how strict it was, and that was diocesan priesthood. Yeah.
My last question, don't count them till Christmas, reflects the people who are at the seminary, but I've been surprised to find out just how many people before Christmas are already set for the next academic year. Mm-hmm. I think in my mind, I thought those people would start trickling in later in the year. I'd like to come in the fall. I put in my application because I'm thinking in terms of colleges. So that's how that works. But you already have accepted a number of people for next academic year now, and we're not quite into the new year yet.
Yes, that's a good sign. If somebody applies early, that's a very good sign of having fire in the belly and fuel in the tanks. That's a good sign. It shows determination.
Don't combine the two. You don't have
we don't have fire and fuel together. No. But
that's a problem mixing our metaphors there.
Maybe that's so bad. Yeah. But most of them do come in the spring. Usually, if they come in after June 30th, my experience is that they leave early.
I see.
If they decide in the summer, well, maybe I'll join the priesthood, and
This phrase to me is unbelievable. The idea that, well, maybe I'll be a priest, as if that is, it's amazing.
Good idea, But again, it could be that that's the only time they heard about it, or that's I'm not saying that everybody that comes in after June 30th is going to quit. It's just that's my experience.
Anecdotally,
is that, there could be reasons for that. You see, and why they're coming in a little late.
So I think the number one takeaway that I'd want our watchers, our listeners, to take from this is the best indicator of the possibility that you're going to persevere is a overwhelming desire for the priesthood to do what it takes, sacrifice what it takes, whether that's family approval or sleep or your difficulties with the language or with habits of study. That perseverance, dedication, a fire in the belly is what is going to carry you through.
Yes. They get enough sleep. It's just they get up early.
Right.
They go to bed early, though.
But sometimes they have to wake up early for, let's say...
various ceremonies, etc., yes. Yeah.
Well, as always, Your Excellency, thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.